Welcome into The First Watch. This is a series where we watch and review classic movies for the first time, and today we are talking about the 1971 sci-fi opus by Stanley Kubrick, A Clockwork Orange. No oranges featured in this movie, 0 out of 10. I do not recommend. Thank you for watching the video. Alright, that joke's out of the way. Now we can actually talk about the film. With all of these first watch videos, I kind of like to start off by saying why I haven't seen that particular movie, and in some instances, like in the case of Jaws, I just came on here and said I got nothing. I have no idea why I haven't seen this movie. In this particular case, I'll excuse myself a little bit because I know how meticulous of a director Stanley Kubrick is, and the attention to detail in all of his films, where I felt like this is not a movie where you just sit down on the couch one day and you just watch it and kind of half-ass it. You really need to be locked in to appreciate the artistry of a Stanley Kubrick movie. So it was a night where there were no sports on, no Big Ten basketball, nothing to really worry about, and so I said, all right, I'm going to really lock in and pay attention to this. And look, this is a tremendous movie. I totally understand why it is viewed as a classic and why Stanley Kubrick as a director is perhaps the most influential director that ever lived. And I think what works about this movie really starts with him. Everything about this movie feels gross. And I mean that in as a positive. I feel like that's intentional. Even moments that feature like clean sets or moments where they're inside a house that looks kind of clean and futuristic, everything is uneasy. And I think a lot of that has to do with Stanley Kubrick's camera work, which he's very famous for, and the fact that you have this main character of Alex who is so despicable. And Stanley Kubrick does something with this film that I think is very difficult to do, and I've complained about it in other movies where I feel like if you're making a film, as I've pointed out in the past, you are watching other people's lives unfold for X amount of time. And if you have a main character, a protagonist, that is wildly unlikable, I think it makes the movie more difficult to consume, and it makes it more difficult to enjoy. You need to truly write a fascinating character if your protagonist is going to be someone that we're not supposed to like. And here, look, Alex is despicable. And it sounds weird to say this, and maybe this is just how my brain works. If they made a Batman movie in the 70s, and they made Malcolm McDowell drop the accent, he could have been a great Joker, because Alex in this movie, all the way down to having a little bit of face paint, just loves doing evil things. And you take a character that's wildly unlikable, and yet that performance is so fascinating, and the direction is so good, and the atmosphere is so good that you kind of can't keep your eyes off of the performance, and you can't keep your eyes off of the screen. And there are moments in which you wish you could. Because I don't want to turn this into a series where I just talk about how, oh, you couldn't make that movie today, because, like, I think sometimes we overdo it with that. The fact is, like, any movie that's ever existed could exist today. The government's not going to walk in and shoot somebody for making a film. But I think in terms of mainstream appeal, this is absolutely a movie that, if it were to get released today, would have a million think pieces about the glorification of violence or of crime. And in a lot of ways, I kind of understand it, because about 10-15 minutes into this movie, there is one of the most famous scenes of this film is a brutal sexual assault scene. I'm watching it and just saying, like, please cut the camera. Please, can we just go to a next scene? And they just keep going and keep going, and it's made worse by the fact that you have the character of Alex, who is just so giddy about doing these heinous things. It makes the movie at points very difficult to get through, but intentionally so. Like, with all of Kubrick's films, every decision he makes as a director, whether it's the editing, the camera work, or what he gets out of his actors, everything feels very intentional. I haven't done a deep dive quite yet, but I'm willing to guess that a lot of the symbolism in this film isn't exactly subtle. I mean, there's literally a scene where a woman gets murdered by a giant penis. Not a real penis, but it's a penis statue. And I'm sure that if I really broke it down, we could look at, what this all means and what the meanings are behind every single scene. And I'm not even saying it's bad. I'm just saying that in certain instances, there's kind of points where I'm like, okay, this isn't even close to subtle. I don't really have any legitimate complaints about the movie. I mean, it's so masterfully made. The performances are so good. And I've had a tendency to come on here in the past with older movies and talk about the fact that I think the acting is often, like, not great. Here, that's not an issue. I think everyone is excellent in it. It's amazing that Malcolm McDowell went on to have the career that he had. First off, never been nominated for an Academy Award, which shocked me. But secondly, like, this is, I believe, the movie that kind of made him a household name or a mainstream name. And it's amazing that he was never typecast as other variations of Alex throughout his entire career, because he really owns this role. I can't imagine the film working as effectively as it does if you put another actor in the lead role. I guess if I had a legitimate complaint, I was a little bit, not confused, but I found the message of the ending to be a little bit muddled. And I'm sure if I gave myself a little bit more time to digest it or looked into it a little bit more, I would probably come away with it with a more clear view. But I felt like towards the end, it's like, hey, you know what? The government controlling people's brains is bad. We need to allow people who love to assault and murder people to continue to do it. Don't get inside their brains. And I'm like, well, but this guy was really, really a horrible person. And I'm sure I'm probably going to get some comments from people saying that that's whack and that I'm not smart enough to understand it. Hand up, I might not be smart enough to understand it. I'm actually going to bump my rating up because last night, this is true, after I went to bed, I had a very disturbing nightmare involving the character of Alex. And I think that there could be people who say that that's just one big coincidence. But in this particular case, I don't think it is, just because every second of this movie is unsettling. Even the parts where the movie is trying to put Alex through his, rehabilitation process, you just feel tense. You just feel like somebody's waiting to explode at any given second. And it's a movie that I don't view as particularly rewatchable because of that. It's so disturbing and uneasy to get through, but I do view it as a masterful work of art. Directorially, I don't know if you could make an adaptation of this source material any better than how Kubrick made it. So I do recommend it, but I recommend it with the caveat of, don't sit down and watch it with the family. I think that it's something that you need to be kind of in a certain mind frame for, but if you're in that mind frame, you'll come away from it appreciating it every bit as much as I did. So 8.5 out of 10. Clockwork Orange, obviously very worthy of its classic status. Hopefully you like this review, and if you did, you can hit that like button. You can hit that subscribe button. Let's get those watch hours up. And you can find all of our content, all of our movie reviews, podcasts, interviews, what have you, at castellanicontent.com. That is your one-stop shop for everything that Austin and I create. So continue to support us. We'll be back next week with another review, another first watch. That's the thing about this series. It's probably going to continue forever. There's a lot of movies out there. Look forward to reviewing them. All right. Peace and happiness.